welcome anybody else who comes as they show up, but we'll get started now. I'm Tammy Sutherland. I am part of the advisory team for the Manitoba Association for Schooling at Home. Or if you're not, we're essentially a group made up of homeschooling parents who are just really passionate about supporting the homeschool community. And so we're all volunteers. We do a conference every year just by way of inspiring and informing ourselves and all of the other homeschooling parents. So we're so glad that you could join us today. I think we have a really exciting lineup. Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. from now until October 21st. So welcome. I will just do a couple of housekeeping things. One, if you're struggling with your internet access or your Wi-Fi is not the greatest, just keeping the video component off for yourself seems to help. In terms of, I should let you know that we're recording this session. We've had a lot of people ask if they could potentially sign up and access it at a later time, and we've said yes. So if you, so just to know that it's being recorded. If the way we're going to do this evening is Bonnie's going to be talking with us. There might be elements or times where she's asking for some interaction, and you can unmute yourself if you wish to share. If you feel more comfortable asking questions or sharing through the chat, that's totally great. At the bottom of your screen, there's a little talkie bubble that says chat under it, and you can chat, and I'll be watching the chat. So if I see stuff come up, I'll just let Bonnie know what's happening, and I'll read your comments anonymously. Just by way of interacting, there's also at the bottom of your screen a button that says reactions. You can choose, you can only have two emotions in this conference. You can be clappy or thumbs uppy. And I think Bonnie would encourage you to use those, as you wish. So I just want to welcome you, regardless of what's brought you to homeschooling. If you're new to it, or you're an old veteran, a grizzled veteran like myself, whatever your family situation is, whoever's homeschooling in your family, whatever your homeschool style is, or if you don't even know what a style is, you're not, whatever your background, whatever your age, whatever, you're very, very welcome with us. SMASH is really about being inclusive of the whole spectrum of homeschoolers. So we want you to feel welcome. So why don't I just get into introducing Bonnie, since that's who we're here to hear from. So tonight's session is Planning Without Panic, Seeing with Fresh Eyes. And Bonnie is someone we asked to do our keynote at a conference a few years ago. And what I really appreciated about the talk you shared with us, Bonnie, was just sort of you kind of took homeschooling to like the meta level. Why we do it, what motivates us, what excites us about it, and just your warmth and your humor and generosity made it a really great kind of opener for us, and really, inspiring kickoff to this, sometimes daunting homeschool year. Bonnie, if you do not know her, I'm going to just read her bio here. She's a wife and mother of 3 wonderful homeschooled kids. 2 have graduated and 1's in high school. Her background's in social work, and that has led her through teaching, counseling, intentional parenting, and planning. When not learning with her kids, she works with schools and organizations to clarify vision and map out clear steps to reach goals. She's a contributing author in Catch a Fire, Fueling Inquiry and Passion Through Project-Based Learning. Bonnie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, it's good to be here. And like Tammy said, I sure hope that tonight we can make you feel really welcome. We all start to homeschool for different reasons, and we want to be able to honor those and think about those. And I'm going to challenge you a little bit on that tonight to help you think through some of your whys that you may have arrived here for in the first place. So we're going to dive right in. So some of you, I'm sure, might be Is this maybe your first conference? I don't know if you're just starting out. Conferences I find can be a little daunting in and of themselves because you think that there's this whole world going on out there that you knew nothing about. So we also want to just bring that down as well and just let it be a night where we can learn together and talk together and answer some questions and learn some things and also challenge you to think differently about something that maybe you haven't thought a whole lot about before. So you might be feeling anxious or nervous or curious or terrified, all of those things. No worries, because all of us as homeschooling parents have felt all of those things, and so you're in the right place. So let's get going. We are going to start with helping you to bring down some of that stress that might be accompanying this decision that you've made to homeschool. So making that decision is daunting enough, like we talked about already, without a world pandemic happening. So we're just going to see if we can help to shift that perspective a little bit. There's many reasons that people choose to homeschool, and I'm sure that for many of you, it's because of the craziness happening around us right now. But whatever your reason, there will be some of those feelings that we just listed that are going to impact your decision. And tonight we're going to look underneath some of those stressors. We're going to sit back and just dream about what homeschooling can actually look like and try and forget about the pandemic for a little bit. Haha. So I'm also going to guess that if your decision to homeschool is based on the current situation, you might be trying to figure out how you're going to mimic school at home. You might think that that is what homeschooling is actually all about. And I'm going to challenge you on that tonight. We're going to challenge some of those assumptions. So we're going to talk tonight about finding your why. I'm just going to try and do 15 things at the same time here, like push this button and roll this thing here. So bear with me. We're going to challenge you tonight to find your why. Why are you homeschooling? Why are you really homeschooling? There's lots of families out there that are worried about the pandemic, but they didn't consider homeschooling, and some of you did. You all did that you're here, but that may not be your primary reason, but it might be, particularly right now with things looking the way they do. But I'm going to guess that you may have some other reasons that you've decided to homeschool, and we want to give you a chance to think about what those are. So if you have a paper and pen with you, I'm going to encourage you to just, as we talk, jot down some of your reasons, some of your whys. And COVID might be at the top of that list, quite possibly. But we're going to see together if there's some other things going on. So before we go too much farther, I would actually like to hear from you guys. Does anybody want to share just a couple of people and a couple of words why you're homeschooling? Like, how did you arrive here? Anybody want to share that?
My reason is COVID related.
Okay. Anybody else? I can totally appreciate that. This is the strangest time ever to be learning and to be doing school. So COVID is definitely one of those legitimate reasons that somebody might think of to homeschool. Absolutely. Anybody else? Anybody else here COVID related?
Yeah, just reading from the chat, one person says, I don't feel safe with the school's protocols.
Okay.
Another says emotional well-being, COVID, anxiety. I had always wanted to, and COVID pushed me to act on something I was never brave enough to pursue.
Ah, interesting.
There's
Silver
an agreement
linings.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself. We have 3 kids, and we've been homeschooling for, I don't know, 14 years-ish maybe. And back before we started, I had friends that were starting to homeschool. And another one would say, oh, I'm going to homeschool too. And another would say, oh, I'm going to homeschool too. And all I could do was, you're amazing. That's never going to happen. That's not something that I'm ever going to do. But for some reason, time went on and I caught the bug and I couldn't shake the idea, and it really fit with our parenting philosophy. So we decided to jump in. that was an interesting decision to come to, because I'll let you know that my husband is a principal of an early years school. And so we sort of kept it quiet for a little while, our decision, not knowing what that would mean for him. However, we felt good about it. And even though we had no idea what we were doing. So I don't know if some of you feel that way, that you have no idea what you're doing. And we all start off there. So you're in good hands. Anyway, when we started, we decided that we would do kind of 2 years and then assess, because we knew we wouldn't have a hot clue what we were doing after just 1 year. We knew it would take us that long just to kind of make a whole bunch of mistakes and then decide what we actually wanted to do. So that wasn't what we chose. But we got better with time, and now we're here, and it's many years later. And yeah, hopefully we can share some things with you tonight that that will be useful for you. Our oldest son, you see him on the screen there, Zachary, he actually went to school up until grade 4, and our daughter went to school until grade 1. And I often joke that the reason that I decided to homeschool was so that I wouldn't have to make lunches and I wouldn't have to get up cranky kids out of bed in the morning. So if those are your reasons for homeschooling, I totally support you in that, because that is not a lot of fun. Our youngest has not been to school, and I often think that we homeschooled the other two as a warm-up just to keep our youngest out of school, because he would have ended up in the principal's office most of the time. His nature just doesn't fit the school system. Our kids are often squished into boxes that aren't natural for them, and that can definitely make learning difficult. By that, I mean that Zeke is kind of a late night guy, and he would stay up late, and no matter how many techniques I tried, I could not get him to bed early or up in the morning. He is spicy and active and loud and marches to the beat of his own drummer, as they say. So homeschooling was a great option for him. So that's a little bit about us and our family. So, all right, with your pen and paper, if you're ready for me to share with you the magic formula for making a great plan, you will have to wait, because that's not where we're going to start. So first, we're going to need to put some things on the table. We're going to ask you a few questions about this decision to homeschool. And in order to do that, we're going to start talking a little bit about school, because some of you have expressed that the reason you're here is COVID, fear of what's happening in the schools with COVID. Maybe you were excited to try it, you were hesitant, and this just pushed you over to give it a try. Whatever those reasons are, many of you, it sounds like, are coming from a school paradigm. And so let's talk about that. If you're coming from a school paradigm and you're coming home to homeschool, you might be thinking that all you have to do is simply duplicate what happens at school and everything will be well. They have it all mapped out. So if I just take that map and I just slide it over here, put it down over here, it should work out just fine. Well, school can be an amazing place. Kids have lots of learning opportunities in school. They make lots of connections. There are great teachers, and there's great administrators, and there's great programs, and there are great resources. But if you think your job is to copy the school system while you ride out COVID, I think that you will have a disappointing homeschool experience, that you will be frustrated with yourself, you will be frustrated with your kids. You're going to end up feeling like a failure, and you will have missed the boat that this homeschooling opportunity can provide. Maybe actually another option might be school wasn't that great an experience for you or your kids, and you figure that if you just kind of take the basics and just do the basics, get through until things get back to normal with school, that will also be okay. Well, here it is. School has a reason for doing what they do. They have a certain way of doing things. Teachers are teaching many kids at once, right? A teacher manages 20 to 30 kids in a classroom at the same time. So that requires certain techniques for classroom management. To try and get everything covered that the Manitoba curriculum outlines takes specific organization and structure if you want to respond to, teach, and hear all of those 25 kids in that classroom. There are things teachers do because they need to move along. and they have to have everybody at basically the same place when they do. That's just obvious. We've all finished this. We're now going to move over here. We need to scoop up everybody isn't quite there yet. And we need to hang on to these guys that are running ahead. We're going to try and move this boat all along at the same time. Some kids are going to be ready to move on, and some are going to be waiting to move on. Some are going to feel panicked because they haven't mastered the material. And some have figured out the structure of the game, and they just get indifferent to the whole thing. Yeah, whatever, I got a 60, good enough, because I know we're just going to move on anyways. So there's lots of different responses. So the Manitoba curriculum offers homeschoolers and teachers an outline as to what should be learned in any particular grade. And if you feel you need to follow that, then you can get a copy of that at the Manitoba website and follow it. I'm going to challenge you on something here, though. There are lots of things to learn. The curriculum is a great outline of possible options, and it might terrify you when you read it because it will look very official and very teachery, and you might not actually understand what they're really getting at or what you're supposed to teach. Relax. I've never actually read one. My point is that there are lots of ways to learn things, and there are lots of things to learn. I'm going to say that again because it's super important. There are lots of ways to learn things, and there are lots of things to learn. The curriculum is great for outlining topics. There are many ways to learn about those topics, though, and just because a task looks schooly, it doesn't mean it's better. So whether you decide to homeschool only for a short time, or you fall in love and it becomes longer term, no matter what you do, you will learn. I mean, as long as you're doing something, you're going to learn. If you think back to grade 5 and the social studies class that talked about, I don't know what they talk about in grade 5, waterways. Do you remember the details about that? I'm going to guess no. It doesn't mean you shouldn't learn it. I just mean relax. Don't panic. Learning's supposed to ignite more learning. It's supposed to interest us. It's supposed to build passion in us. Chances are, if it doesn't do at least one of those things, we're going to forget it anyways. So if it does interest us, you watch this, you'll know this about your own kids. If it interests you, you're going to pick up a book about it. You're going to watch a movie about it. You're going to draw pictures about it. You're going to pursue it. It's going to stick. We found something that we want to know more about, and that is what learning is actually about. As homeschoolers, we're actually learning how to learn. We're actually wanting to teach our kids how to learn. It's the land of Google. You can know anything you want with the click of a button. We need to know how to do that in a safe, wise, responsible way, because we can learn anything we want to at any time. That's what our job here is. It's more interactive. It's more communal. I've learned so much as a homeschool mom because we learn together. I don't have to have all the answers because I'm the parent. I just have to teach them how to learn. Everything we learn doesn't ignite passion in us. We need to be presented a few different things, and a few things we just do have to learn. But at the end of the educational journey, we want our kids to leave wanting to learn and knowing how to do it. To have found that thing or two that energizes them, that excites them, that leads them into the future. Some kids, though, just to throw a wrench into things, they find things out much later. Everything isn't over when you graduate. You don't go, oh, grade 12, I've learned everything there is to learn in the whole world, and now I'm ready for anything. It doesn't work that way. Would you even want it to work that way? Oh my gosh, when I think of the number of different things that I've done as an adult, where my learning has really come alive, I'm glad I haven't stopped learning. Same for our kids. This is just a period of time where we pour a lot of stuff in, but it's not the end of their learning. So it's not so much about what you teach, whether it's from the curriculum exactly or not. It's teaching our kids and ourselves how to learn. We want our kids to learn how to listen to themselves, to discover where their interests lie, for them to know they can trust that we will hear them and let them learn what they're meant to learn. The stuff that sticks, whether you're in school or at home, is not the stuff you have no interest in. Right? It's the stuff that piques your interest, your curiosity. We learn all the time. We're wired that way. If we're in an environment that nurtures our interests, we will learn even more. Research actually shows us that anxious, stressed people and kids can't retain what they learn. Their brains are busy trying to avoid pain and fear and to stay balanced. So we can put so much stress on ourselves and our kids to learn the right things, and then we miss out the bits that will really stick because that's what they really want to hear and learn. So here's another thing to challenge you. What are the right things to learn then? And who decides that? Ever thought of that? Where does the curriculum come from? We say things like this to ourselves. Kids need to learn responsibility, to wake up early, because when they get a job in the real world, that's what will be expected. Can I see a thumbs up? Do we believe our kids should do that? Learn responsibility? Yes. Kids need to learn to be organized. They need to start early so they establish healthy habits. Kids need to follow directions and do what they're told. Future bosses will be looking for compliant people who don't always argue. Kids need to learn in a certain order, because I actually don't know how to finish that sentence because it doesn't actually make any sense to me. I don't think it matters if you learn about clouds before you learn about volcanoes. So I don't know about the order thing. So skip that one. So all of the other things are true. They all are great skills. They're not the only skills that one needs in order to grow into a balanced person. I want you to think about that. There's a lot of things they teach in school, and they are great things. There's a lot of things that we don't teach in school that we need to grow up to be a contributing, happy, solid person. I actually want to grow relationship over obedience. I want my kids to respond to me because they love me and respect me, not because they have to, or because they'll get in trouble, or because they'll lose points on that really big chart on the wall. I want them to learn how to listen to themselves. I want them to learn how to listen to others. I want them to know how to listen, that their voices are worth hearing, to know how to go against the grain sometimes, if they feel it's the right thing to do. So if we want them for that to be what happens in the end, we need to leave space to practice these things when they're young. They don't just magically happen. I mean, of course, as parents, we all want our kids to listen to us and do what we say. It makes life easier for all of us. Imagine, especially in a classroom of 25 kids, behavior needs to be manageable for the teacher. But if you're going to come home and learn together, relax. The things that work in the classroom are designed to work in the classroom for 25 students, not in your home. You have 1, 2, maybe you have 5 kids. Maybe you have 7 kids. Anybody here with more than 7 kids? Still not 25. And you're in your own home with your own routines, your own way of doing things, your own ways of learning. You have a different relationship with your kids than the one between student and teacher. At least I hope you do. And if not, here's your chance to strengthen that relationship. The relationship you have with your child now teaches them how to have relationships with their kids, with their extended family, with their neighbors, all of it. It's all learning. There's more to it than academics. What kind of complete person are you hoping to nurture? We are not growing a school, we are growing a person. Academics are very important. Absolutely they are. But they aren't everything. And sometimes we just need to be reminded of that. If we put that much time and effort into academics, how much time and intention are we putting into the character stuff? The same amount, at least, I hope? That's a question that we want to ask ourselves within our own families. I'll tell you a little story. This is my lovely daughter, Bridget. I would help her clean her room from time to time because she could never do it on her own because she was way too overwhelmed. Our daughter is very imaginative, and she would save toilet paper rolls, make families with full genealogies. She would collect red Dairy Queen spoons, and with a Sharpie, she'd give them eyes and a mouth, and she would name them all and put them into families, and any tiny small item that she found anywhere could be turned into a supply for these families. Every toothpick, every paperclip, every scrap of paper or fabric was definitely needed and could definitely not be thrown away. Everything needed to be saved. So I can be a pretty organized person, and in her own way she was too, but she had her own bizarre system that didn't make any sense to me. It seemed clear to me that all the spoons would go together, and then when you're ready to play with them, you pull them all out and play with the spoons. No, not so. They had to be kept in family groupings, Mother. Clearly, family groupings. This spoon belonged with this spoon, not that spoon, this spoon. And this spool of thread belongs with these two, not with those ones. So it was very hard to help her clean up. But she couldn't do it on her own. She was too overwhelmed. And I'm not one to go and purge when my kids aren't around because I think it breaks trust. And so one of my reasons, one of my whys for homeschooling is relationship. And that's what I base my decisions on. So I tried to help her clean her room, but it was excruciating for me and for her. I would tell myself I'm going to be calm and relaxed as we work together, but she wouldn't get rid of anything, and we would both end up super frustrated, and her room didn't look any different in the end. So I needed to step back, and I had to ask myself my why. Why do I need her room cleaned? It's because it's gross and she needs to learn to take care of her stuff, to be responsible. Okay. Are there other ways to learn this? Is this the right time to learn this? Is she ready to learn it? What do I want to accomplish? What is my end reason? What's my why? My why is relationship. Okay, so if my why is relationship, how do I grow relationship? Well, by not fighting constantly. Throwing away her stuff when she isn't looking is not a good idea, or getting angry at her for not doing a job that I don't deem as good enough. Those things are not going to grow relationship. So I learned over the years to work on me. I'm going to say that again. I learned over the years to work on me, to keep my why in sight. So this adventure of homeschooling will teach you as much about yourself as it will about your kids. What presses your buttons and how are you going to manage them? Thank you, children, for teaching us how to be better adults. So why am I homeschooling? Why am I helping her clean her room? Well, so that she can learn some organizational skills, for her to feel good about herself, for the little bits that she can accomplish, to know when she's overwhelmed, it's good to ask for help, and that ultimately, I like to be with her, to enjoy time with her. And if I can keep myself calm about it and remember I want to be with her, then this is a great way to do it. I'll tell you that I definitely got angry, and I had thoughts of worrying if she would be a complete unorganized hoarder. But I tried to remember my why, which for me is a strong, lifelong, respectful relationship that lasts beyond parenting. If I remember my why, I could direct my actions and my words to build on my why instead of tear it down. She is now 20. There are no spoons or toilet paper families in her room anymore. In fact, I remember when she was 15 or 16, when she did a big purge, I wasn't ready all of a sudden for it all to go. She did save a few in a special box. Her room has since been redesigned, repainted, reorganized. It's fun and it's clean. There's no clutter, there's no recyclables. But the reality of this parenting journey definitely hit me. Childish things come to an end and our kids grow up. What do I want that to look like when it comes? Answering that question now will help you make better decisions in the stressful moments. I'm glad I learned to relax and remember my why instead of fighting. was 1 week ago, she got on a plane in the middle of COVID to go to school in Amsterdam for a year. There are no more spoons or room cleaning. All we have left is our relationship. That's the only thing that you're going to carry with you. Your kids will be 20 before you know it too. So now it's time to decide on your why and make it a why worth your time. So if those perfect marks, clean room, and organized binders are the most important thing to you, you might want to reassess that. Slow down and listen to yourself, because sometimes we're moving so fast, we forget to stop and decide why we are doing what we're doing, and then we miss the opportunity. Don't miss it. I would encourage you not to miss it. So look underneath your own behavior and figure out your motivation and decide if you like it or not. And now's your chance to change it if you need to. So I'm going to be clear here. Yes, marks matter. Responsibility matters. Good listening and organization matter. But so does being a good listener, being able to trust yourself and listen to others, to have space to create and discover, to have a safe place to make mistakes, to learn to be attentive to the needs of others. We teach our kids this stuff by our behavior. They watch us and they learn from us. So stop and be intentional about what you want to sow into here. Here's another example. Some of you might be thinking, my kids don't get along so well. All day long together? So another why for me, or a dream, was for us to grow strong bonds between siblings that will last a lifetime. So I do things that are going to get us there. I can't just hope that happens. Oh, I sure hope one day they stop fighting and throwing each other off the balcony. No, I have to do things intentionally if I want to grow that. What you water grows. So if my kids were playing a game together when I came into the room to get math going, I would slowly back up. I'd go do some laundry or something. If I wanted our kids to be connected, I need to be intentional about making that happen. I need to leave the room before I give my, why aren't you doing any schoolwork speech? When I see them playing a board game together or building a Lego tower together or cuddling up on the couch talking. So if we want them to be good friends into adulthood, I can't just let them play together as toddlers either. I need to let them have big kid connection time too, right? They won't remember their grade 4 math mark, and neither will you. But they will spend their lifetime with their siblings, and growing those relationships in the midst of sibling rivalries and jealousies and differences, that takes intention. These things can be hard to process without a concentrated effort. It takes time spent to find intentional ways to rebuild after a fight, to say you're sorry. How do you do that? It's not always easy, and it needs to be taught and given space. This is life curriculum. Don't skip it because it isn't listed in the Manitoba curriculum. My kids right now are on 3 different continents. Zachary's in Africa, and Bridget's in Amsterdam, and Zeke is here. They talk regularly, a few times a week sometimes. They share recipes and share their successes and failures of the week. And they care for each other, they miss each other. They've invested in and chosen relationship. So if that's part of your why, and I hope I've challenged you to stretch your why a bit, and it's part of why you're choosing to homeschool, then plan with this relational focus in mind, and your plan will be much richer and less stressful. I'm going to tell you another story. I introduced you earlier to Zeke, who's now 15. I particularly love this, playing the piano with the yellow gloves on and this lost boy look here. Anyways, when Zeke was little, as I mentioned, he would stay up late at night. As the rest of the household was winding down, he would be winding up. The whole household would be asleep, and I, as parents often do, would make my way to the computer to check emails and take care of business. It's a time when I'd like some peace and quiet and to think about adult stuff. And this is when Zeke would come more alive. He would suddenly have a desire to make a duct tape wallet, write a story, learn how to forge something. One night, many years ago, this is what it looked like. Mom, I'm going to make some armor out of fabric in this old leather and jean I found in the fabric trunk. Can you get me the sewing machine, please? Me. It's 11 o'clock. I'm not getting the machine out. We are not sewing stuff right now. That sounds like a great project to do during the day. That's a statement I say all the time. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed right away, and you should be in bed too. Well, you're doing the dishes. I'll just keep you company. If I go and try and put him to bed, which I've already learned is a waste of energy, the dishes won't get done. So I keep doing the dishes. Then I hear, Mom, where are the sewing scissors? We aren't sewing right now. I know. Can I use this leather? We aren't sewing right now. I know. I'm just going to hand sew it. What size needle do I use? Is this one good? So you get the idea. So this went on for many years with many attempts to change it. And finally I learned and tried to relax about it and let him be himself instead of squish him into something that he's not. We had the freedom to do that because we homeschooled, and I wasn't trying to copy school at home. He didn't have to get up in the morning yet. He was a kid. He'll be an adult soon enough and for a very long time. When there's a reason that touches his passion or interest, he'll be ready to learn that skill. I just tried to be patient. So fast forward to now. Zeke just turned 15 in the spring. He stumbled upon a volunteer position at an inner city summer school program for newcomers. I hoped he might go 2 days or so a week for the learning experience, knowing that he would never be anywhere for 8 a.m., at least not consistently. He went to the orientation and he loved it. When we were heading home, he announced that he would like to volunteer full-time. The hours are 8 to 4. Well, he set his alarm and got up every day, all summer long. Sometimes he would try to go in early to help the staff get set up. He sustained this for the entire summer. That's because it was his passion, not mine, not a teacher's, not the Manitoba curriculums, but his own. Now, of course, we push our kids to try things, to have experiences so that they can find their passions. But we need to ask ourselves, what's our why? We need to ask them, what is your why? What are you passionate about? Turns out he's able to get up on time, be responsible for himself, report to a boss, and do what he's asked. All in one opportunity. I knew it was in there, but I just had to wait for his moment, not mine. So, what's your why? Are you pushing because it's something you want? Is it something they want? Is it something they need? Something you want to stretch them in? We got to ask ourselves these questions and see what happens. Okay. I think I've made my point about the why, I hope. So I'm going to ask everybody, if you don't have a sleeping child on your lap, to stand up. Everybody up. I want you to tell someone in your house, yell it out if you're by yourself. We need to find our why. Put your hands up, put your hands down, stretch a little bit, shake it up, shake it up. Okay, this is your break time, so go ahead, shake it up, shake it up. Zeke was just in a play, and so I have show tunes running through my head constantly, so shake it up, shake it up. Okay, anyways, okay, I'll stop now. Everybody ready? I need water. All right. Next, we're going to talk about expectations, because we need to do that before we can plan. The reason I was afraid to start homeschooling was because I didn't think I could live up to the expectations that were put on me from lots of places, right? We put them on ourselves. The school government expectations, which is kind of hilarious because you think somehow they have a more vested interest in my kids' education than I do. Family, grandparents, people put expectations on us. We put them on ourselves. We have a picture in our heads about what happens in school. It'll be a bit different for everyone, but for the most part, we think kids are being fed knowledge and they're just consuming it. They're just eating it up. They just present it and the kids go, oh, thank you, and they ingest it. Well, until you've had to do some homework, then you know it may not be quite that simple. Homework is a whole other topic. I'm just going Anyway, we need to step back and look at what we expect to happen here at home. Will we serve up a banquet of things to learn, overwhelming ourselves and running ourselves ragged, and our kids will take it all in and then just be ready for next year when COVID's over? Whether it's at home or whether they go back to school, we'll just fill in this year with the appropriate things and it'll all work out. If that's your expectation, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to ask yourselves a question. How do I learn best? Is it by reading, listening, watching, doing, physical movement, being in nature? Then I want you to ask your kid the very same question. How do you learn best, honey? Do they know? Can they answer that? If they can't, they have some personal exploring to do, because sometimes it takes some time to figure that out. And homeschooling is perfect for that. You can create the best homeschool possible, and if it doesn't reflect how your kids learn, you're in for a very difficult year. You may think homeschooling is awful and run for the hills. The reality is teachers at school see some kids getting the info, some kids not getting it, some kids struggling. And if you think just because you present it, it will be learned, think again. Schools do a great job offering many different learning styles to try and catch all their learners, but they're doing that for 25 kids. You don't need to copy learning techniques just because they do them in school if they aren't right for your kid. You have freedom to teach not only how, but also the content that fits for you and your child. Therefore, your time will be way better spent. You'll accomplish way more in less time. You'll have more time for the fun stuff, the relational stuff, the creative stuff, the quiet time, which is actually necessary for good brain development. Another little something about school. When you're trying to organize for that many kids, there's a lot of downtime. You're waiting for others to catch up. You're moving from one room to another. You're settling in. This all takes time. No one in school, just in case you didn't know this, is doing academics from 8:30 to 3:30. Just saying. So go back to your why. In our family, one of our whys is mastery. If you understand it, we move on. If you don't, we don't. We keep at it. We'll work through some frustration, but if it's causing undue stress, we'll put it down. We'll come back to it another time when you're more ready for it. When you're homeschooling, you have that freedom. So let's talk about readiness in light of these expectations that we have that everything will happen when we present it. In the school system, we expect that kids will meet certain developmental markers at roughly the same time. By the same time, we mean, I don't know, over the few months, over the year. But does every kid master multiplication in grade 3? Not mine. Is every kid reading chapter books by grade 2? Not mine. Our oldest is now working on a math degree at university when he's in the country. I'm not sure when he mastered multiplication, but he did. My daughter didn't read until she was 12-ish. Don't worry, she reads now. She managed to get on a plane by herself and settle into a dorm room by herself, and a whole bunch of reading is ahead for her this year. She reads, but boy, it took a long time. If I didn't keep my expectations in check, which I didn't always, I would have been so worried and so frustrated with her and with me. What was wrong with me? What was wrong with her? Why wouldn't she learn? Why did she hate it? I didn't know the answers to the questions, but I do know she was my kid who learned when she was good and ready, and it was often after everybody else. But I did create the atmosphere for her to learn. We had books around. We read to her. We listened to books. And we waited. How many of you garden? Any gardeners? I'm looking for thumbs up or some kind of something. There's a gardener. I see 1, 2, couple of gardeners. Couple of gardeners. Okay, so you know, if you're a gardener, that when you plant a tomato seed or any small plant, you water it. We're excited in the fall when we know there's going to be big juicy tomatoes on it, but now in the spring, we know what's to come, but right now it's just a tiny little plant and it takes root and then the stalk strengthens and this takes time. And it's the same with our kids. Finally, eventually a yellow flower pops out It's lovely and dainty. But if you didn't know better and you thought this was it, you'd be kind of disappointed because you thought you were getting a big juicy tomato like it shows on the package cover, and all you have is this silly fragile flower. Well, what would happen if you picked that little flower because it wasn't what you were hoping for? You got rid of it, hoping the plant would just try again. You'll never get a tomato if you pick the flower. Never. The flower will gradually grow into a tomato when it's supposed to. There's nothing you can do to change that. But you do have a job to do, and it's an important one. It's to plant in good soil, to water the little plant, pull the surrounding weeds, maybe fertilize it if something extra is needed, just like our kids. You're going to create an atmosphere of learning. It's fun to learn. We like to learn. There are lots of ways to learn. We are always learning. Those are the things that we want to fill our kids' minds with so that they get it, that this is a good thing. We're the gardener, but we're not the creator of the tomato. As parents, we feel this strong desire to be the creator of our child's future, especially if we see a deficit like, hoarder tendencies coming up. We work extra hard on that soil. We keep poking that yellow flower, trying to stretch it into a tomato. The yellow flower just sits there and does its own thing, slowly changing, so slowly that we don't see it. It doesn't matter how anxious or fearful we get, that little flower just sits there, slowly changing. So we can do a disservice to our budding tomato by looking at the flower in disgust and impatience or even anger. We can cause it to wilt before it turns into its fullness. And we can slip into this because we have so much love for our kids. It overwhelms us sometimes. We get panicky. I totally get that. We think, shouldn't it be a tomato by now? Shouldn't she be reading by now? Look over there. She has a tomato already. And so do they. And look at that astronaut tomato over there. We get panicky. Well, we need to go back to our gardener roots and remember our job and our why. Our job is to nurture, to water, and to tend. What you water grows. You need to trust that. So water the good stuff. You don't want to water weeds. Write it somewhere so you don't forget it. We dream of a tomato at the end of the season. We just can't pick it until it's right. It simply won't be as full as it was intended to be. Be patient and fix your eyes on the dream. So work out that anxiety. Whatever it takes, keep your eyes on that harvest. Do whatever it takes to drop that mommy guilt and that anxiety, or that daddy guilt if the best dad ever, you're the one homeschooling. Call a friend, read a book, go for a walk, whatever it takes, but get out from the under. Why isn't my tomato growing? Because that will damage what you're trying to do. And this is also key. Tend your own garden. Don't look over the fence at your neighbors. Trust that your kids have individual, unique purposes, and you'll find their passion if we don't squish it with our expectations. Our culture has lots of expectations and they rub off on us and we rub them onto our kids. If you slow down enough to find your why, and then you'll have a much clearer picture of where you want to go. So we have to ask ourselves these questions first before we make plans and set up structures and buy curriculum resources and compare our homeschool with Sally's. Otherwise, we get distracted by those expectations. We need to decide that we want to do this, that we approach this from a place of strength, even if we don't know what we're doing, that we choose to dream about it. Dreams are the birthplace of planning. So if homeschooling has become part of your why, then dream about it. Don't just do it as a placeholder. If you're going to do it, do it. Dream big. Even if it's short term, that's okay. This decision needs to shift from a place of deficit. It's not because the school system failed you or you have limited options or because of COVID. These things have certainly played into your decision to homeschool. I totally get that. But now it's time to switch perspectives. If you want your homeschooling experience to come from a place of beauty and strength, you need to align your perspective with opportunity and adventure, not with COVID. So take the time to let yourself imagine what this could really look like without the expectations of others guiding you. Your kids are going to learn. They're wired to do that. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to choose it. Okay, so let's talk about planning. Took a while to get here, but trust me, there's important reasons why we started where we did. If we don't stop and take the time to think about what's important to us and our why, as we've been calling it, then you won't have any idea how to get there. If you get in a car and you start driving, you'll definitely end up somewhere. If you didn't have a destination in mind, you'll probably end up somewhere you hadn't planned on going. But inside us, we all, I think, know where we want to go. We just haven't always stopped to identify it and plan a course to get there. So if you know where you would like to go and drive towards it, chances are you'll have a much better chance of arriving there. So I'm going to ask you as a parent, not right now, but you may have paper in front of you, to think about what is your why? What are your reasons? What are some of your dreams around that? And after you do that, again, we don't have time to let you go off and do that right now. But then it's time to sit down with your kids and do it. And that can be a little bit trickier. You want to find out what they're looking forward to and what are they afraid of? What do they hope to accomplish in a perfect world? What would homeschooling actually look like? So if you have taken some time to realign your own expectations, this doesn't have to be scary. In fact, it can be very freeing because you'll find it'll bring you together on a journey rather than you playing the role of the teacher and that they're the student. Yeah, that's a new role that you'll be playing, but you are the parent. That role takes precedence over all others. Your ideas about this journey need to converge with your child's. They won't unless you ask the bold questions and talk to them about it. I want to draw your attention here to an important distinction. We're not talking about goals yet. We're talking about dreams, perfect world stuff. We'll have goals for each year for sure, but if you don't know where you're trying to get to, you can't get there too easily. Good goals begin with dreams. So what's a dream? It's not a goal. It's the bigger picture. It excites you. It energizes you. And there's no right or wrong answer. This part can be hard because if you're worried about what needs to get done and what needs to happen, we can get, oh no, that's not a good dream. That's a crazy dream. We don't have time for that. But we need to listen to your child to express what their dreams are about homeschooling. They may say they want to watch TV all day, stay in their pajamas and sleep in. Don't panic and don't judge. Let them express it. Sometimes we just need someone to hear us and not try to change our minds. They know they need to do some academic stuff. They just want to know if they have room for their dreams as well. If they feel heard, they can move on. So what's their why underneath their dreams? Some kids are so stressed and so ready to slow life down. Others will be stressed that they aren't doing enough. These kids will probably take care of themselves, but keep an eye on their mental health. Remember, you're listening to the why underneath, and you still have expectations, of course, and you have things that need to get done, but is there something in the dream that you can honor that helps them to feel heard? What are your dreams? If you really let yourself dream, if you want this to work, you both need to feel heard, and you need to let yourself actually dream, not just set goals with no rudder. No judgments on the dream. Write them down. Enjoy them. Check your expectations at the door. There'll be time later to outline those expectations. For a moment, just enjoy what could be. Enjoy the fun of creating a dream. Because the truth is, forcing our plan doesn't necessarily get to our dream. In fact, it probably defeats it. How can our kids learn how to respect our requests if we don't respect theirs? Of course, parenting comes in here. Don't hear me wrong, but I think we do things to our kids rather than with our kids, and then expect them to do things with us or with others out of respect. This stuff takes modeling and practice, and it is a very valid part of our school day. You can't hand someone your why and expect them to just pick it up. It's not fair, and it probably won't work, at least not long term. It of course circles back to relationship again, and that means knowing someone believes in you. So now that you have a rough idea as to where you want to go, you have a clear dream, we can work backwards. We can look at the map and plan a course. Obviously, there's going to be detours, but they don't need to take you too far off course if you remember where you're intending to go. Remember, our homeschool does not need to look like school, and it probably shouldn't because they have different needs than you do at home. Keep your expectations in check, remember your why, and dare to dream with your kids. Remember, flowers become more fruit, and your job is to nurture, not to force, because you can't force a natural process. Okay, so now we're ready to look at some actual concrete planning because you've outlined your dream first. Now take a look at that dream and see what you've got. Look at your why and figure out what you can extract from it to set a more concrete goal. So I'm going to look at some examples with you. So let's go back to that silly example about, I want to be in my pajamas all day and watch TV all day and eat snacks. Okay. And your dream is, we have lots of academics that we need to get accomplished. This is my dream. I've got lots of things that we need to take care of. You have academics on yours, they have sleeping in on their list. Can you do both? You probably can. Remember, no one is doing academics from 8:30 to 3:30 in school. So check your dream and see if school in your pajamas that you start at 10 is going to work. If your child feels heard and like they're having some fun, you might get more academics out of them. And remember, learning styles, I have to say, there are amazing resources on the screen, tons of resources on the screen, so much. If your kid learns by watching, you can accomplish so much with a screen and a bowl of popcorn. Remember, this is not school, and there are lots of ways to learn, and there are lots of things to learn, and it all counts. So if you stumble on a documentary or historical fiction series about the war, and your kid loves all things war, then watch it. Just because it's in movie form doesn't mean it doesn't count. Write it down, count it every time. We did a history club. Ooh, I have that in there. This is a picture of our dream, our path. So all this part, I'm pointing at it and you can't see what I'm doing. Anyways, that part on the side that's not in the bubble, sort of the freewheeling stuff, that is dreams. And then we got concrete and we listed them in that sort of circle-y area there. And so you can have fun with it. It doesn't have to look all schooly. Just write it down and have it in front of your face. Take the time. So we did a history club at our house for years on Monday nights, and we'd watch Canada People's History, a CBC series from years ago. We would discover things together, pause it and ask questions, look something up, write out a timeline on recipe cards with watercolor pencils, because all the artists needed to make sure it was done that way so they could learn. So much happened with tea and cookies and blankets and friends. Now you just socially distance a little bit. And yeah. So you find out what you need or want to cover. I say want on purpose. I know I might be pushing some people here, but if you don't want to learn something, you won't. This goes for teaching as well. If you're bored, your kids probably are too. So find something interesting to learn and learn it. If you learn it in September instead of May, who cares? For those of you who are in this for the long haul, if you learn it in grade 8 instead of grade 4, or in grade 8 instead of grade 11, who cares? Learn it when you're interested in it. You'll have more chance of retaining it. If you need structure, structure your day. If you need flexibility, be flexible. It sounds simple, but it isn't if you're expecting it to look like school. Even if you're structured, your home learning will look very different from school structure because you are at home. Let's talk about some of those specific ideas. Remember, these support your dream, not the other way around. So you're going to make a list of courses or topics or materials that you'd like to try. Notice I said try. Of course, based on what we've been talking about, you know that if you choose something and it isn't working, which you can tell because learning shut down and you're fighting about it, then you change it up. You abandon it and you try something else. If you don't do math for a week, the world doesn't fall apart. Some of us veterans will confess there might have been a few days or months, maybe even a year or two that no math happened. They catch up when they're ready. Remember, you as the parent are a budding tomato yourself, and there are things that you're going to learn and you're going to grow in. We started with a resource called Math UC. I don't know if I wrote that one out, but it's called Math UC for Zeke. Then we switched to a different course or a different curriculum called Teaching Textbooks, which is also a great math resource. And now he would like to try Khan Academy for his high school math. What's our dream? Learning math, because he has a science math brain. So we want to encourage him to use his strengths. Does that mean he has to stay with one curriculum? No, my dream isn't that he graduates using only one math curriculum. That's not my dream, and it's not his either. So decide what topics you want to cover. Then search the internet, ask around, call MASH. There's endless resources. The resources are vast. So I'll share some that we love to help narrow the options. If you get lost on the internet, abandon that. I'll show you them in a little bit. Remember, you do not need to find that one perfect resource to teach about giraffes. Kids can help. There's lots of ways to learn, relax, and enjoy this. There are a number of ways to organize your day, but again, I would start with what you want to accomplish and work it backwards based on the needs of your own family and your own home. I can't tell you how to do it because it will differ. The most important thing that you need to do is have your philosophy grounded first, and all the other things will fall into place. And that's what we're talking about today. Anyways, what I would have a tendency to do, a kind of a bad habit, I would see if someone had finished everything for the day, and that must mean that they didn't have enough to do. So I wanted to add things just when they thought they were done. Totally not fair. If I decided maybe they could do more than they're doing, then we sit down and talk about it, make a new plan, and stick to it as long as it works. When it doesn't work anymore, we sit down and change it or revamp it, whatever. Good life skills. So planning also really depends on the age of your kids. Young kids, I'd say until like middle school, don't spend hours and hours doing academics at school. They are just there for hours and hours. Play is so incredibly important to our development, and there's lots of research on this, as is outside time. I would encourage you to come and listen to Jen Gaiman talk about that. I don't know when she's up, but she's going to be talking about play in a few weeks. So important for our kids' development. Schools know this too. Kids at this age are reading, and they're being read to lots. This is actually where your focus would be. It's really important. And there's lots of fun ways to do this. There's, of course, just reading books, but there's also audiobooks. Libraries have audiobooks. There's a thing called audible.com, kind of expensive. You pay by the month and you can download books. And then you kind of own them. Yeah, but there's lots of ways to access books. And the reason I'm talking audiobooks is it sounds like it should be really simple to just be at home with 2 kids and you should be able to teach them all day because it's only 2 of them. I don't know why it is, but life seems to get in the middle of all that. And it doesn't seem to flow quite that easily. So sometimes if you have a resource like listening to a book, you have that in your back pocket if you're not available to just read. We have come across lots of websites that make games out of word work and early math. At this age, your kids are creating, they're experimenting, they're using up all your condiments, doing kitchen science, they're writing stories, they're watching Magic School Bus or the Krat Brothers. They're learning more than you could ever imagine. And then once middle school hits, it's time to infuse a bit more structure. And they're usually ready for it. Not so much for boys. They often take a little bit longer to be ready for seat work. My homeschool reports to the government would always say, not too ready for seat work yet, when I would do Zeke's report. But by high school, your goal really is to have taught them how to learn. So if you're embarking on a high school journey, don't panic. I can't teach grade 11 chemistry, so I don't. I get a resource, or I do some distance education through Manitoba Education, or take a course online, or look at Khan Academy, or there's other great resources. My husband just sent me a cool one yesterday. It's the New York Times writing curriculum for middle and high school, and it's free. And I'm going to show you a picture of it in a minute. I try, not always successfully, to make sure I do something with the kids each day, or at least many days. That sounds ridiculous, but wait for it. Like a bike ride or a chat on the couch or a video we watch together. Because once they hit middle school, you're kind of working alongside one another and you're helping them troubleshoot, but they get pretty independent. And you need to almost intentionally check in with them and schedule time to do stuff together and plan together and that kind of stuff. When they're little, of course, you're very interactive. You're reading, you're playing, you're doing all sorts of things. Remember that life curriculum that we talked about earlier. So doing dishes, learning to cook, brainstorming on how to fix a problem, saying sorry, working through a meltdown. These things all become part of learning of the day, regardless of how old they are. And you need to leave space for that or change things up to make space when that appears. So I think I'm going to stop here and I'm going to open up to questions, and I'm just going to recap as we do that. Okay. Know why you're doing homeschooling. Remember your why. Take time to figure it out. What is your why? Just recognize that home and school are different. Think beyond your school experience. Adjust your expectations and watch for readiness. Ask and listen to your kids. Teach the way that they learn. Be patient and leave room for growth. Don't pick flowers. Be patient while the fruit grows. It's both for you and your kids, right? Dream and plan with the end in mind. Change it up when necessary. And have fun and enjoy each other. So I'm sure some of you may have a few questions. There's so much more I could have talked about, but I think we'll leave it there. Take a stretch if you need to. I know that's a long time to sit and listen to me just talk at you for an hour. Okay. Anyways, next. Oh, here's some resources that I can just leave up here, and you can copy. And I'll leave that up for a second, and then I'll show you some more. I can walk you through some of these too if you like. Do you have some questions you'd like to ask first, or do you want me to walk you through a couple of these? While you're gathering questions, Tammy, maybe I'll just respond to some of these. This Shepherd Software, Jen Gaiman, who's sitting right down here beside me, she showed me this many, many years ago. Do you even remember that, Jen? We met in Tracy's kitchen, and you told me about Shepherd Software. It's become one of our favorite resources. Our kids do geography on here. There's lots of games. It's all free. They do English, geography, math, all kinds of stuff, but the geography is particularly fantastic. My kids could tell you where pretty much every country in the world is. I can't, but they can. Brain Pop is, you pay for Brain Pop. Right now they have a $1 for the month. I think it's for the month. It's a fantastic resource. Actually, there are a few free videos with Brain Pop, and yeah, they're really great. You can pay for a more robust program, but there are free things with Brain Pop. Highly recommend Brain Pop. It is so great. I keep doing that. Dance Mat Typing and Type Racer. Those are just online. Learn how to type. Hear my sound effects? I'm just typing here. Yeah, they teach you how to type. One of these, Dance Mat Typing is for littler kids, and Type Racer is a little bit as for, the next level. Vox is a thing that I haven't explored very much, but I've just recently discovered. It's like videos on well, I was gonna say TV, but you know what I mean. It's videos, I guess YouTube-ish, and great information, great interesting things that I'm hoping to explore more this year as well. Khan Academy, I don't know if you've heard about Khan Academy, but I would encourage you to go to TED Talks and look up Khan Academy and hear, what's his name, how he created and started Khan Academy. So cool, and a fantastic resource. Don't underestimate the power of the Magic School Bus. It is such a fantastic, important resource. I swear, I would do all these other cool things with my kids around science, and they would say things like, "Oh, I learned that on the Magic School Bus." I'm like, and then on and on. That would always be the answer. "Oh, I learned that on the Magic School Bus." Wildcrats, all about animals. That's all we did forever. That was a big one. Timeless is for older kids or young adults, or I don't know, depends on what your family's into. But this is a historical fiction series on TV. It was really good. CBC, A People's History, that's that video series that we used. I think you can take that out of the library. Clue Finders is so great and so fun. It's a video game, because I would be like, "No, you can't play video games. No, you can't play video games." And then this Clue Finders was so fun. It's like a educational learning game. You have to unlock the next clue. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark with learning stuff. Lots of fun. And of course, TED Talks. Oh, this is that curriculum for middle school and high school, New York Times thing. Called if you Googled the Writer's Retreat, you would find that. I talked already about teaching textbooks and Matthew C. I have a lot of Saxon math in my basement if anybody wants it. And so if you think about it, in these last 3 minutes, I've told you about geography, history, math, writing. There you go, basics covered. So yeah, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Brain pop, oh, there's brain pop, yep. Okay, all right, questions. Let's talk. What do you got? I just threw a ton of information at you. Oh my gosh, I hope you were taking some notes to just say, oh, I want to remember to ask more about that, because I just went like a train there. Ooh, sorry.
Ronnie, I'll just tell you that one person said I cried. Thank you so much.
Oh,
And another person
I
is
cried too.
yeah. Another person also is seconding your love of Magic School Bus.
Yeah, yep,
So
yep.
friends, yeah. Bonnie, I have a question. Just, I know you showed as part of your slides sort of a visual map that it looked like you and your kids had written a whole pile of stuff on. I sometimes struggle with figuring out, especially I'm just homeschooling one right now, and he's fairly, like if I want to talk about planning, that just makes him anxious. So
Totally.
if you'd have any advice on how to make it fun and draw out the ideas your kids have, and how do you draw out their dreams?
Absolutely. Great question. First of all, you have to get yourself out of your own head. You have to, if you go in thinking like, okay, it's time to do our planning for the year, you're going in thinking about school, they're coming in thinking about, Zeke wants to build a computer. Like, it's all he's talking about. He made some money this summer at his job. He can't think about anything else. So I have to listen to this about computer parts hour after hour, and I don't get it. And so I have to get in his head and out of my own. So when I sit down to do planning, this one here, I actually thought I took it out, this picture here of our path, because I had obviously guided this towards a school path. But what I would encourage you to do is sit down with a blank piece of paper and a bunch of felt markers, or I often put it on the wall, a giant piece of paper on the wall, and get big felts and just say, hey, let's dream together. And don't call it planning for the year. Don't call it any of that stuff. Just go, so like, what's on your mind these days? Like, what's cool for you? What's interesting for you? And just draw together, and don't make it about school. You already know in your head that you have to do some math and some writing and some reading and some blah, blah, blah. But what you want to get at is what they want to do on top of that. So there's no need to add your stuff in and suck the joy out of it for them. You already know that, and they already know that. Like, they really do. So just give them space to draw, color, dream. Like I had one in here of Zachary's, and it was like black Sharpie on a white paper, linear. He just wrote a list. Bridget's was like, I want to dance and be free and color things, and I don't want to do any reading or school. I'm like, okay, honey, that's nice. Like, you have to let them, you have to honor where they are and who they are, and let them have their moment. And then on a completely different day, say, okay, so here are some things that I was thinking. I took a look at that cool poster you did the other day, and I was hoping that we could do some underwater basket weaving on Fridays after we do some other stuff. Right? And so then you try and weave it in. So just don't say the word planning or school planning, because it gets them anxious. It gets me anxious. I'm like, come on, could you just pick a couple of schooly things, because you know I have to school, like, right? And we can get ourselves into that crazy place. And you have to almost breathe yourself through it, like me in Bridget's bedroom. You just have to be like, yeah, that's a ridiculous idea, but thanks for sharing that. I'm just going to write that on the paper here. That's fun. Yeah, they need to feel heard, and make it about something else entirely if you need to. Does that sort of help?
Yes.
Like, you know that they have to learn stuff, and they do. So just later on say, okay, well, I've got a couple of math ideas here. Can you tell me which one you like better? Right?
Yeah.
Like, That's kind of separate than discovering. And then as they grow up, you can say, you know what, I want to hear that so that I could pull that into your school. I want to hear what that is so that I can pull that into your planning for the year.
Okay, I see another question coming in here. First, a comment. One person is saying, deepening our relationships with our kids is very important to us. Our biggest challenge is going to be to ignite the drive and get the motivation going. The dream planning is an amazing way that I think will help us get there. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then,
I wish I could have talked for 6 hours about relationship and what that means and how to do it, because sometimes we throw that word around. We all want it, but we aren't super intentional about how, or know how to get there sometimes, right? I remember reading one book years ago that said, we give our kids swimming lessons and cello lessons and karate lessons and baseball. We do all these things to develop them as a full person. How many times a week do you volunteer with them? Well, when they grow up, we think they're going to be citizens that want to volunteer. Why would they want to do that? It's not part of their understanding of life. It's not part of their what's been part of their weekly day or weekly things that they do. So why all of a sudden would we expect that? So if we want to grow relationship, we have to do things like leave time to grow relationship. So the bike ride is just as important as the math if your why is relationship building. The board game is as important as the science if relationship is one of your main reasons for homeschooling. Don't underestimate the power of time spent together if you want to build relationship.
okay, here's another question coming from the chat. It says, I have not submitted my program outline. I went to the Scholar's Choice and they recommended some grade 3 workbooks. I ended up buying 8 workbooks. Is that enough for 1 year of homeschooling?
That's enough for a lifetime of homeschooling. I say that tongue-in-cheek because every year I buy the Canadian curriculum, grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you decide. I've never opened them, or we do the first 3 pages of each section and then we don't do them anymore. They're a great resource if you're feeling panicky and you're like, oh my gosh, we need to do something. So they are a fantastic place to start. But because then you feel like you're doing something, but as you get rolling and you start to come into your own with it a little bit and you go, wait a second, is this the only way to learn, by doing a workbook? Because and if your kid loves workbooks, then buy 18 workbooks. That's great. But I'm going to guess that you can change that up with some other things. How old is your child? Do we know?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm complicating things because it's in the
Sorry,
chat.
yeah, the person says he is 8 years old.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a boy? Oh yeah, 8-year-old boys? Yeah. Okay. I would if he likes doing seat work, then that's great. If he struggles with that, like he may struggle with that, don't think you failed homeschooling, and don't think he's not able to homeschool, because not many 8-year-old boys like to sit and do workbooks. So like 8-year-old, I'm not sure that I did very much of anything at 8. I'll be totally honest. Like I could do a whole other thing about a whole other thing here, but I don't want to make people too nuts. At 8 years old and a boy, you are going outside and exploring what you find. You're drawing what you see outside. You're making bike ramps out of wood. Or maybe your kid likes to sit and draw and all those sorts of things. But at 8, it's about play, and it's about breathing in everything around you. It's like taking everything in. So when the workbooks when they get frustrated with the workbook, then do the workbook until it feels like that's enough of the workbook. Then head on over to the Magic School Bus or go for a walk or go watch that building at the corner that they've got the wrecking ball out for and they're knocking it down. How cool is that? Go and watch that happen and then come back and Google, how do you tear down a building? That's weird. And then watch some videos on how that's done. That's what 8-year-old boys are not, I'm totally generalizing here, but you know, you don't have to get all schooly at age 8.
Yeah, and that person is just saying their child likes dinosaurs, video games, hockey, skating. So yeah, a lot of cool interest.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And like I say, those video games, boy, you can get some really cool learning video games, really cool ones.
Yeah.
That would replace a workbook. Do you know what I mean? Like they're interactive and all those sorts of things. I'm not saying don't do the workbooks. I'm just saying just expand your mind a little bit about how he might like to learn. And as you embark on the year together, you'll discover that. He'll either sit down for 3 hours and do a workbook and you'll be like, oh, workbooks are awesome. Or he might do 3 pages and go, I hate this. And then it doesn't mean you failed. It means you reassess.
There's a question here asking if you could give some examples of maybe homeschooling philosophy, like what are the different types of ways people homeschool?
Sure, absolutely. There are as many different ways of homeschooling as there are homeschoolers. You will hear terms like schooling at home, where school can be, or homeschooling can be very structured, where you do make it as much like school as you can. You're all at the dining room table at a certain time. You have your workbooks or your textbooks and you work things through and you ring a bell and go out for recess and then come back for classes, so that you can do it in a very structured way. You can, and the other end of the spectrum of that is unschooling, where the philosophy and the belief is kids learn whatever they want to learn and you don't really need to provide a whole lot of stuff until they ask for it, and when they do, you just get that and you do that. I think most homeschoolers, they land somewhere in the middle between those two extremes. Some days are very structured for us and some days are very unstructured for us. When grandma goes into the hospital, things get very unstructured. When everything's settled and it's the middle of winter, things can get very structured. You really need to roll with what's going on in your life, because remember, this is life schooling. And so if your kids don't know how to respond when somebody's sick, that becomes your curriculum for the moment, right? And you need to respond to these sorts of things. So there's a wide range. And I guess the idea is you need to just try some things out and know that everything is okay for you to try, especially when you're starting, and talk to lots of people and say, should I be doing it this way? Or do you know of any other ways or ideas? Because that will help you try some things on and try them on. I'll tell you this right now, if your kid doesn't go to school till Christmas, they aren't going to fall off the planet and die and be the stupidest person alive. That's not how this rolls. So we used to seem to start our year in January all the time, because summertime is when we learn a ton. So we would do things September to January or to December, but it felt like I was always, I don't like this resource. You don't seem to be doing this resource. Let me buy another one. It took 3 weeks to show up. And so by the time we actually got going and felt good about it, it seemed to be Christmas, at which time we took a break because it was Christmas. And then we got going in January. But remember, you want to do 3 hours of math, do 3 hours of math. You want to work in the evening, work in the evening. You want to start at noon and work till 10 p.m. and work 10 hours a day, go ahead. Like, it just needs to work for your own particular system, for your own family. And you need to just discover that.
Okay, someone is saying, I love the freedom that homeschooling will allow. I am thankful for your information. My children are 5, kindergarten, and 7, grade 2. Could you suggest some ways to keep their attention when I need them to focus?
When you need them to focus on what? When you need them to be quiet? Or when you need them to focus on doing work? I say that because if you're taking a call from grandma, this is where Magic School Bus is the best thing ever. There are so many learning resources, and I say Magic School Bus, I love the Magic School Bus, but there's a zillion Magic School Bus like things that can help, especially that age. You're just playing at that age. Don't forget the power of play. I really encourage you to come and listen to Jen. Play is one of the most important things that your kids will do. It develops their brain. It develops their social skills. It develops their ability to interact with people. Like, it's huge. It's so huge. So don't underestimate the power of play.
So the person has just clarified, focus on doing work. So presumably academic work.
Okay, at 5 and 7, I say, Godspeed, good luck to you. I say that, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also super kind of not, because 5 and 7, not doing much seat work at 5 and 7, not in my house. I don't know if anybody else wants to pipe in here, but 5, you're reading books at 5. You're practicing your letters, and you're doing that in sand. You're doing it on the sidewalk outside with chalk. You're doing it on the fence with chalk. You're doing it with finger paint, and you're doing it with colored markers, and you're secretly learning your letters. You're learning through play. So you're learning all of those things how you're guiding some of the play. But it's reading. You're reading to them while they're playing Lego. You're reading to them while they're playing in the mud, in the sandbox. Like, there's not a lot that you need to get them to. If they can't focus, they can't focus. They're 5 and 7. They're actually not supposed to focus yet. They're supposed to focus for, like, what is it? Your age plus 2 or something. So your 5-year-old should be able to, or is it plus 10? Your 5-year-old might be able to focus for like 10 to 15 minutes. And your 7-year-old, you might get 16, 17 minutes out of them. That's brain development-y wise, that's what you're getting, max. At a time. Doesn't mean you can't come back later on in the afternoon and have another go at it, or after you run outside and play. But don't expect anyone sitting down for any length of time doing any kind of structured math work, unless they're those kids. I didn't have any of those kids. No one just sat down and said, may I have the pencil, please, Mom? I'd like to do schoolwork for 6 hours. No one ever said that.
So I'm noticing it's 8:30, and a couple people have logged off. I don't know if anyone has any closing questions, or Bonnie, you wanted to leave us with anything in closing?
I guess I just want to leave you with find your joy. Like, if you're worried about resources, or worried about how to do this, then hang out with some people who have done it before. I encourage you to come to every one of these Wednesday nights and hear from other people who've been doing it a long time. We all started out with a stack of workbooks. I remember going to my first homeschool conference and buying this magical curriculum that went from kindergarten to grade 8. It covered every topic known to man, and it was the only curriculum I ever had to buy. I spent $400 on this curriculum. I never opened it, ever. Actually, that's not true. I opened it once. I started to cry. I closed it, and I never picked it up again, because I was like, this is way too overwhelming for me. I have dishes and laundry to do and a baby on my hip. How am I supposed to go and get these 73 resources so that I can do lesson 1 properly and build a life-size ear so that my child can climb through it and learn all about it? Super cool ideas, but I'm not doing that. I don't have time. So, yeah, just keep it simple. Find your joy and keep it simple. This is a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. Have fun with it. And I'm very serious when I say that really, those of us that have been at it for a long time, no one's really doing a whole lot until like close to middle school. Like, I don't mean not doing a whole lot. I mean, not doing a lot of structured looking things. We might be doing little bits of it and in ways that work for our family, but it doesn't look like you think it looks.
Amen.
That's what I would say. Find your joy, have fun.
Well, thank you so much, Bonnie. It was so fun to listen to you. And I think we've all got a lot of great resources to go check out. I know I have a list written down here, and I'm looking forward to, yeah, capturing some more of that, the joy of homeschooling.
Awesome.
I'll just
Thanks for the invite. That was fun.
You are welcome. So next week is a day in the life, structuring your homeschool experience. What do homeschoolers do all day? We're going to find that out next Wednesday with guests Tim Engbrecht, Kat Funk, and Jennifer Smith. They all have really unique ways of homeschooling. And so I invite you to register on Eventbrite and join us for that session. Thanks everybody so much for coming.
Thanks for coming, people. Thanks, Tammy.
Bye.